On this episode of the Video Archives podcast, Quentin Tarantino and Roger Avary unpack the ornaments to decorate the Christmas tree. In this 1969 film directed by Terence Young, a French-American tycoon is on vacation with his son when a terrible accident occurs, causing his son to only have months to live. The tycoon, along with his war buddy and girlfriend, spend the next few months trying to grant his every last wish, no matter how crazy. Quentin and Roger share their perspectives watching this turgid tearjerker as fathers of sons, the cinematic moments they've never seen before, and Roger's personal connection to Terence Young. Next up, we better get to sleep and put out the milk and cookies because Santa Claus is coming to town. In this Rankin Bass Christmas classic, postman S.D. Kluger, voiced by Fred Astaire, answers some of the most important questions about Santa Claus himself. Through song and dance, we meet colorful characters voiced by Mickey Rooney, Keenan Wynn, Paul Frees, Robie Lester, and Joan Gardner, and learn the true meaning of Christmas. I'm Gala Avary, and joining us by the fire, here's Quentin Tarantino and Roger Avary. Yes, you guys, it's Christmas here at the Archives.
Ho, 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 ho. Merry Christmas.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome. Gather by the fire. And please, please, Joshua, kill the buffalo. Welcome to the Christmas episode of the Video Archives podcast. I am Quentin Tarantino.
I'm Roger Avary.
And the two films that we're going to do two films today, make it a special Christmas doodad. One will be a video motion picture on the Video Gem label, the wonderful Video Gem label, called The Christmas Tree. But because it does, even though we got it on our Christmas episode, it's not really a Christmas movie.
Well, to me, this is a Christmas movie.
But it gets there. It gets there.
It's a Christmas movie, and it's using the metaphor of a cut Christmas tree.
It actually becomes literal, but the name is more metaphoric. The child himself is supposed to be a Christmas tree. But then our second thing will be the laser disc of the Rankin Bass Christmas special, Santa Claus is Coming to Town.
Oh, I can't wait.
So first up, The Christmas Tree. It's directed by Terence Young, the auteur who started the James Bond franchise and directed a lot of the great ones in that early time.
Yeah, like Thunderball and Dr. No.
Yeah, From Russia with Love.
Yeah.
And then consequently, at that time, became actually the biggest action director in the world.
Yeah.
There was a period of time where Terence Young was considered an auteur. He did a remake of the Charles Boyer movie, Mayerling, with Catherine Deneuve and Omar Sharif. And it's like Terence Young's Mayerling. All of a sudden, I even think Wait Until Dark is like Terence Young's Wait Until Dark.
Like Michael Bay. He would be
exactly,
known as a...
Right.
You know what you're going to get when you go to a Terence Young film.
Yeah, and his competition to people like Andrew V. McLaughlin. So yeah, he kicked their ass. So this, seemingly on the surface, is a change of pace for him. Because this is a tearjerker, melodramatic tearjerker.
Boy, is it.
Which, because of the success of Love Story, were very, very popular. Love Story was one of the biggest, was the single biggest film of 1970. And then following right after it was Summer of 42, which was one of the biggest movies in 1971. Then this kind of like movies that just rips your heart out, it makes you cry, whether it's about a doomed love or somebody's getting a disease like Brian's song, some sort of devotion of love. We've watched a few of these, all right, between Ice Castles and The Promise. I guess apparently I'm on this kind of kick.
It's working for me.
Yeah.
I'm glad you're on this kick.
I know you are. And that's why that's actually one of the things I like about it. I kind of lean into it a little bit because I know you kind of like these kind of things.
Yeah, you know that I like schmaltzy things a little bit.
Well,
and this isn't, I wouldn't even call this schmaltzy.
I wouldn't call it schmaltzy. Well, they are, but that's part of it. The schmaltz of it, the fact that it's working to engineer your tears, the nakedness of that is part of the enjoyment.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think part of the thing was Terence Young wanted to show that he could do other kinds of drama. But when you watch it, you see that Terence Young doesn't stray too far from his action film pyrotechnics by the way it's directed, despite the fact that the story is like a legitimate straight up tearjerker. I mean, it's Terence Young doing a tearjerker like this is sort of like George C. Scott and Rod Steiger playing impotent. remember the movie from the great show on television in the 70s, the CBS Friday Night Late movie. The CBS Friday Night Late movie had the best collection of films, and they were mostly, TV premieres. But a lot of the cool B movies, or a lot of the cool second tier titles, from the studio, got their premieres on the CBS Late movie, and it's the one that I could watch because I didn't have school the next day. And I saw so many movies from that time, but also even the ones I didn't see, I remember the trailers for them. And next week on the CBS Late movie, and I remember the trailer for The Christmas Tree very, very well. And I think I might have watched a little bit of it, but I didn't really get around to actually sitting down watching it until I went on a kick of these type of movies about 6 years ago when I was scheduling a bunch for the New Beverly. I got a copy of the tape, which is actually under the title When Wolves Cry, which I think is because they didn't want to name a movie that's not about Christmas, The Christmas Tree for video. So they would have customers coming back like, isn't it a fucking Christmas movie? What the fuck is this shit? All right. Especially this movie.
Oh, this is my kind of Christmas movie, though. I'm going to say that.
Okay, so Roger, let me pass it on to you to read the back of the box and explain the plot line.
Okay, so apparently, I think this was an Eddie Brandt stick that you got?
Yes.
It looks like what happened was this was a paper box, probably a larger paper box, and then box probably got mashed or something.
Yeah. They started cutting this stuff to conform for a space.
Yeah, to all fit together into a space, and so they cut up the box, and so consequently, a couple of paragraphs are trimmed.
Is it a couple paragraphs, or is it like a letter?
3 paragraphs have been trimmed off the very front.
Wow,
but I'm going to do my best to extrapolate the missing words.
I only give Roger the unreadable boxes. You will notice that. Those of you playing our home game.
When wolves cry, every parent's nightmare becomes real. So already we're in the rage type universe with this movie. A millionaire father, a motherless son. Now they've been brought together by a startling secret that will tear them apart forever. In the classic tradition of love story and terms of endearment comes the inspiring story of, I don't know what, and courage. It's been cut off. Love and courage, let's say.
Love and courage.
William Holden as Laurent, a wealthy French-American industrialist, vacationing in Corsica with his estranged something-year-old son, Pascal, Brooke Fuller. After a mysterious accident, tests confirm that Pascal is seriously ill. Laurent takes the boy to the family chateau in the hills of the French Riviera. With the help of his beautiful fiancée, Catherine, Virna Lisi, and devoted caretaker, Verdun Bourville.
Best friend in the world.
Yeah, best friend in the world. Loved comedian Bourville.
The legendary.
He indulges his son's every whim, even stealing 2 wild wolves from the Paris Zoo as pets. As Laurent dedicates himself to the young boy's happiness, Pascal's courageous example educates him in the art of life and love. Starring William Holden, Virna Lisi, and Bourville. Written and directed by Terrence Young. Color, rated for all ages. Running time, 108 minutes. Rated for all ages. That means it's G.
Yes. That's when they would give G movies like that. G. Yeah.
Yeah. And so this is a G movie with all sorts of
violence.
Yeah, violence, and I must say a very, very emotional experience.
Yes, very much so. That does a fairly good job of describing it. We can probably describe it better, but let's get into it first. What did you think of it?
Okay. I think you know that this movie really hit me and affected me, and it really made me think as we were watching it and after we watched it about the power of cinema. Mm-hmm. You know, how a film can connect with you in a very specific moment in time and speak to you directly. And this movie, on every level, every element of it, every piece of it, I was being shocked as I was watching it because everything in it was speaking to me and in a way that was touching me right now, most important in my life. I'm not sure that it would have affected me the same way if I'd seen this way back when, for example, in the early mid 90s when I was living in the south of France. Mm-hmm. This movie it's a father and son story.
Mm-hmm.
And prior to this, my father had a stroke.
Mm-hmm.
And so a small stroke. And so, with great concern, I flew to his home in Colorado, and I was with him. And, my father's 90. He's, you kind of know what he's like. He's like,
No, he's Roy Cameron.
Roy Cameron.
He's a recurring character on the show.
He's a miner. He's an adventurer. The reason I'm born in Flin Flon, Manitoba, Canada, in the north of Canada.
That sounds like a made-up name.
Yeah, I know. That sounds
like a puff and stuff name.
Yeah, I've grown up with that. Flin Flon. Flin Flon. And believe me, when Canadians find out that I'm from Flin Flon, they look at me differently. They're like, respect.
Yeah, right. Okay, that's even Canuck for us.
Yeah, seriously. They're like, oh, you're from Flin Flon? Please come to our house for dinner. It's like that with Canadians. Yeah. It's a very special thing because it's a mining town in the north. My dad likes to go to the, as we would say, the Coul de Monde.
Yeah.
And so I went and I visited my dad, and because he's had a stroke, his other friend is there as well. His old friend Luisinho, who is frankly, he's kind of like Bourvil.
I was ready to say, he's sort of like the Bourvil character, yeah.
And so, and my dad in this movie was like William Holden. And I mean, my dad was almost exactly like William Holden, but even more than my dad, my grandfather was exactly like William Holden. He was a pilot. He was a G-man, doing CIA activity, doing all sorts of undercover stuff, flying money in suitcases to Imelda Marcos from the Pentagon. All sorts of weird stuff was going on, and living like a bon vivant in Rarotonga and Switzerland and places like that. This was the world I grew up in, believe it or not. Although our family wasn't from France like his family is, and we didn't have a chateau in the South. Our family was really a Brazilian family.
Yeah. You're the Brazilian version of this.
I was like the Brazilian version of this.
What France is to this, Brazil.
Right. I would be away and I would be going to school, and my parents were actually divorced. And so I was living in the United States, but then I would fly to my father, for summers. And sometimes I would even be, go to school. He would just to deal with me, just check me into school.
Yeah, right, exactly.
You're going to go to school, because it's school time down in Brazil. And so I ended up going to school for my summer vacations. I would go to school. That was it.
Because that's 4 hours of the day you'd have to fuck around with.
Yeah, and we lived this kind of, I don't know what to call it other than those people who won the war were living like kings after the war in a world that was basically theirs. It reminded me of this, traveling to a faraway place. Your dad's girlfriend is there. You're driving around in cars. He loves you and he's giving you 100%. It's like, throwing silver dollars into the swimming pool. Now go swim for him while he has a drink. Things like that. And so, I'm watching this movie and I'm like really connecting with the world that William Holden comes in, and also the kind of person that William Holden is. Like, he has a past that he never really talks about too much with his son.
It's actually, they just call him a millionaire. No. He's a tycoon.
Yeah, he's a tycoon.
He's a tycoon. All right. He was a millionaire at 25. Now he's a tycoon. But it's revealed little by little that during World War II, he was an American working with the French resistance.
Yeah, commando.
Commando. And his buddy was Bourvil.
Yeah.
All right. He was working with the resistance and he's working with the Americans. And he just tells this half story about the son is asking him, wasn't there a time that you guys used to sleep in the trees, to hide from the Nazis? Well, that happened once, We'd just blown up a train, all right? and the Gestapo was looking for us everywhere, so we had to sleep in a tree that night. So it was okay. It happens. It worked out. Okay, so we're hearing that, and like, oh my God, he's a train killer. Gala's gonna love it. He's a train killer.
Yeah, he's actually a guy who blows up trains. That's their thing.
But then again, the idea of a turgid, tear-jerking melodrama for Terrence Young is like the character. is the star of a whole
other movie,
a whole espionage, French Resistance, World War II movie, him and Bourville, all right, that we never even see. That happens. That happens 20 years earlier. We never even see it, but it's informed of who he is.
Yeah.
But the guy is like the star of a fucking war movie before our film even begins.
Well, I noticed that Bourville's character's name is Verdun. And Verdun was in Verdun when it was German-occupied France. And so there wasn't like a lot going on there because it was occupied other than the French resistance.
Yeah.
And so I think he's named Verdun because that's where...
Oh, well, that makes sense.
That's where they were, is that they were doing French resistance stuff.
And by the way, and not only that, just even casting William Holden in this role, he's not doing that well around this time with the exception of the Wild Bunch.
Yeah.
All right.
Devil's Brigade.
He still has the prestige, but you can get him.
Yeah.
He's gettable.
Yeah.
But casting him in this with that past is a little bit like casting Harrison Ford.
Completely.
Because it's like, when you think of William Holden, you think of The Bridge on the River Kwai. You think of these kind of movies.
That's like who he was.
That's who he was.
If Bridge on the River Kwai had taken place in Verdun, that would have been that would have been William Holden's character.
Absolutely.
In this movie. And so after the war, his buddy, his French resistance pal, is now like the caretaker at his mansion he's up in Paris. And, doing his business and everything. And I guess he's like an American who had French citizenship. And so he's like kind of living there. And he's since the war become, wealthy. He's a millionaire. So there was that one just that I really identified with this kid, and I really saw my dad and really especially my grandfather. Who were both named Ned. They were both Edwins.
Okay, gotcha.
And it was just reminding me of him. And then this takes place in the world of, Nice. And shot at Le Studio Victorine. And I lived in Antibes in Nice for quite a while. And, it was like a second home to me. And while I lived there, I got to know slightly Terrence Young. There's a whole crowd of expat, mostly British filmmakers down there. And Americans.
And isn't, like you said, Roger Moore? And
Roger Moore.
David Niven.
He was like, Roger Moore lives just down the road. And Jules Bass was a good friend.
Like Jack Haley Jr. and, people like that, right?
And John Malkovich was there. There's a whole bunch of like expats. And there's a bunch of Bond directors down there, actually. I think...
that's one of the... I'm getting to that place right now. It's one of the things that old people do to get out of the fucking house is they get together with other old friends and like have coffee at some of their cafes and whatever. Well, if everybody's there in the south of France, that's really easy to do.
Yeah, it was fantastic. And, and when there's no festival going on, everybody's just palling around and they're all going to the same little restaurant and having pizza and Encore du Jacques Daniel. This movie really like shook me to my core, actually, because it brought back a flood of memories and a flood of emotions that I hadn't really thought about in a long time. And, because of Terrence Young, I bought a Caterham Super 7, which was like a little kind of race car to buzz around up there. And he helped me organize that. But I would go to dinner at his house with some other friends. And also I was shooting at Le Studio Victorine, and he knew the studio. He was like the king of the studio, basically. Of those guys. And David and David Lean had been down there. He had just recently died. And while I was there, Terrence died. And I didn't talk to you about that actually last night, but while I was working on that project down there, he passed away. And so it was like all of that flooded back to me because the whole movie is shot. It's shot at Victorine. Like every time they were in the studio, I could feel those studio doors that are like worn down. It was a studio built by Rex Ingram back in the day to get away from Hollywood. And he went and he built a studio out there so he could make his
Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse.
Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse was made there. And David Lean was prepping Nostromo when he died at the studio. And so so I was working there. And so you get to know everybody. And like Jules Bass of Rankin Bass. He became a really good friend. Like he taught me everything I know about basically scheduling television. He sat me down and taught me this is how you do it. And
Roger, I didn't really know that you had this little cluster of old pros like that welcomed you inside.
I ran away to France for a while. I ran away to France and I was living in the South. And you get taken in by a little community, and you end up having dinner at people's houses. And so anyhow, I'm watching this, and like everything about it, like I'm seeing, there's a location. I know where that is. That's right next to the studio, like where they're shooting that, where that big wall is by the road. All of this was kind of like really hitting me. And it's a father and son story. And as you know, I have a son and a daughter, and you also have a son and a daughter.
No, I couldn't help but view it in a different way than I had ever would have before.
But this movie is a movie for fathers and sons in many ways.
Well, one of the things that hit me about the film, and it's what a good tearjerker does. One of the things I actually like about these movies when they pull them off is it takes construction. You need to know what you're doing. You need to know how to get to where you're going. I mean, that's one of the things that made the Promise so good is they get you to that scene at the Rock on the hill. Yeah. And it's reverse engineered to get you there and for you to feel a certain thing when you get there. And I don't feel that Ice Castles nailed that. As well as that scene is, the storytelling leading up to there didn't set me up. But these different tearjerkers all have their different audiences and all have their different personalities. This is a tearjerker aimed towards men. Yeah. It is for men.
And it's a masculine.
It's as masculine a turgid melodrama as I've ever seen. I mean, like, shockingly so.
It's as masculine.
And by the way, and I say masculine in the good way, that almost sounds like it's going to sound like weird values or, or machismo. No, it's not that at all. But the thing is that special bond between a father and a son, especially a son who's still a boy. Yeah. It's engineered to get right there for that arrow to hit you right in that heart if you have that heart.
And there's a little bit of the American Pie thing in that he's a busy man.
Yeah.
And his son is away at school in San Francisco. And that's another thing. The son is in San Francisco away at school. All my family, everyone went to boarding school in Carmel near San Francisco because the family's from the San Francisco Bay Area. And so the girls went to Santa Catalina. The boys went to the Robert Louis Stevenson School. And because of the divorce, I was always kind of an outsider of that. And so kind of disconnected from it, but, always traveling off to see my dad. And when you're a kid, your dad is everything.
This is George C. Scott. I believe a good film should be honest and real. The New Centurions is such a picture based on the bestseller About Cops, by a Cop. I believe you'll find it as exciting and entertaining as any film you'll see this year. I'm proud to be in it.
George C. Scott and Stacy Keach are the New Centurions. Leonard Harris of CBS TV says the New Centurions is a fast-moving powerhouse that races along like a freight train. Gene Shalit of WNBC TV says the New Centurions is a movie that gives you a stunning understanding of what life is like for big city cops. And James Bacon, nationally syndicated columnist, applauds the New Centurions as a blockbuster picture. See George C. Scott and Stacy Keach in the New Centurions from Columbia Pictures, rated R. Under 17, not admitted without parent.
And here's Gala.
Hey, so it is really a gift to me, though, when we watch these kinds of movies, because I feel like I get to know my dad a little bit better. So whenever we have a discussion like this, I'm like, this is really excellent, because I even get to hear stories that I've never heard before. Yeah. And I know all about the car in the south of France. Quentin asked me beforehand how I ended up seeing this movie. I've actually seen this movie before.
Oh,
which is random, because Mark gave me the tape for it.
Mark is a huge fan of this genre of movies.
He's a huge fan of this genre of movie. And he actually, at a screening at the New Bev, saw me and he's like, oh my God, I have a gift for you. And went to his car and I saw this on November 24th. So I think it was a Christmas gift to me, actually. Okay, And he came.
The Christmas tree.
The Christmas tree was a Christmas gift. And he came out and he's like, I love this movie. I really want you to watch it. And so I said, okay. And I actually sat down and I watched the tape. And okay, the beginning of the movie, like when they're in like vacation time.
Yeah.
It feels so
They're in
like
Corsica.
they're in Corsica just in vacation time, and it feels so light and like fancy free.
Yeah.
And I saw it under the title The Christmas Tree.
Yeah.
So I totally was prepared for like a Christmas like movie. And based on the poster on my box, it's like a father like holding his son. There's like a gift or something.
Yeah,
I think it's gonna be like a
red and
Hallmark
green.
movie,
Yeah.
It's gonna
1960s Hallmark style
I
movie.
totally-
That was the trailer on the CBS Friday Night Late movie. Yeah.
No, I 100% thought it was going to be that. And I'm watching, and then all of a sudden, when like the accident happens and stuff, I'm
Yeah.
like, holy cow. Like, what is this movie about
Okay,
to
so
turn
the
into?
accident is like the father and son are out on a boat. They're out on
they're on a dinghy.
they're on a little dinghy and they're fishing and they're just kind of like lazing in the Corsican sun. Just
And his dad, for being as good of a dad he is, because he does go camping with him and stuff, is also like wandering eye and like having his own good time. which
he's
is
got
so
his
much
girlfriend
fun.
back at the hotel, I'm sure.
No, and it's so much fun. Like, you really just feel like you're like
Well,
in
I thought-
summertime.
But especially seeing it a second time, I was really able to see what an excellent job Terrence Young does
my
in
God, yes.
directing that scene.
You-
He totally creates this free, unmelodramatic, unscripted kind of like feeling between them on the beach.
Yeah, it's totally unscripted. It just feels
It just feels like vacation, but they're all charming enough, so you're following it along.
That's the thing. You almost are able, like, you almost, if you're not paying enough attention, you can tune out and just think, oh, I'm just watching like a summertime fun movie. And then this accident wakes you up.
Yeah, I mean, like at any moment before the accident happens, it could just be a scene to show that they're having a good time and they get along well and it's all going good. And so they could cut to a restaurant and like another scene would happen. At any point before that, that could just be the only reason it's there.
Well, what's funny is when the accident happens, it's the kind of accident that we are basically watching an adjacent James Bond movie happening, where there's a nuclear disaster happens in the south of Corsica.
Absolutely.
In Corsica.
Okay, so what we're talking about is they're on their dinghy.
The line gets caught in the anchor, the fishing line.
Yeah, that makes William Holden have to jump in the water and untie the line. And so he's underwater. And so the kid is up on top of on the dinghy, and then all of a sudden there's an airplane sound, and then all of a sudden the plane explodes.
It's huge.
In a crazy explosion. And it reminded me of the quote you said, which is, if you want to make a spectacular movie, you've got to do something spectacular.
Yeah. Coppola talking about Sorcerer and Apocalypse Now. Yeah.
And they did something spectacular.
If you want to film something spectacular, you got to do something spectacular.
I mean, this looked like this explosion that they create and the rather repeated explosions, these explosions that occur, and then the plane that falls and the nuclear device that comes down in a parachute.
It looks like a nuclear missile or something. Yeah. It comes down on a parachute.
It was crazy. I was actually my heart was racing during the scene.
It's so realistic, and it manages to be absolutely spectacular, but spectacular the way real life is spectacular.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like movie spectacular. It doesn't look like movie pyrotechnics. It doesn't look like what Michael Bay would do.
Yeah. No, it's real.
It looks real.
Because they did it for real.
But it looks big.
It is big.
Yeah.
That's the thing. It has to be
Well,
big.
they had to do it big in order for it to register.
And they have the actors in the foreground. So when it's happening, they're catching footage of the kids standing on the boat. I mean, it's absolutely smashing. It's incredible.
And so because William Holden is a tycoon and he's involved in governments and stuff, he knows, no, that's not just a regular plane. Something's up with that.
Like, he's basically a G-man, like my grandfather.
Yeah. Well,
he immediately gets on the phone with whoever it is in the government. It's like, hey, Jack, something just happened down here. And well, you better return to Paris. Just forget about it. We're covering it up.
But at the same time, he knows what that thing was. He knows that that's a nuclear missile.
Like,
on
basically,
the
his
parachute.
son is irradiated.
Yeah.
And because
like Rage.
And because he's under the water.
It's exactly like Rage.
Because he's under the water, he's shielded from the radiation of the temporary burst.
Yeah.
His son, on the other hand, is dosed with radiation and then tested afterwards and basically given
and
a few months to live.
Yeah, and and also, William Holden is like 220 pounds and his son is like, 40.
Yeah.
Now, and so he takes him back. They do some tests. At first, it seems like he's okay. And admittedly, if we're going to talk about the cheesiness of the movie, it has a little bit of the love story in it where it's like Pascal, the kid, has got a disease that leaves him looking exactly like he looks as pretty and handsome as he looks from the whole movie right up until the day he fucking dies.
Yeah, like a little 8-year-old or 10-year-old Anthony Perkins.
Yeah, just like Ally McGraw. You know, it's not like she's like hooked up to colostomy bags and like tubes going down her nose and up and down her throat. No. She looks beautiful even in her deathbed.
Yeah.
But so Pascal has got that same version of leukemia.
Yeah, and then he takes him home basically to the chateau, and he's going to fulfill his
So what happens is that my favorite scene of a doctor talking to the loved one about how the other person only has like 6 months to live or a year to live or whatever. This is my favorite one because I really like the doctor in it. I really think he's terrific. And he's like, well, he's got 6 months to live. It's incurable. He's going to die. And William Holden is ranting and
there's got to be hope. Like there's got to be something. We've got to do something. Nope. And you must be wrong. Surely we got to. I'm not just going to take your opinion. I'm going to run around and
whatever. All right, look at it like this. You were just born yesterday, and you have a 10-year-old son, and you have 6 months to enjoy your life together. Enjoy it. You're lucky. Have a great 6 months. You have 6 months where you could have had none.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm just...
Yeah, the whole movie is very emotional.
I just so understood.
Yeah.
And to William Holden's character's credit, so does he. He gets it. It's not a lesson that for dramatics the character needs to keep being taught until he gets it. The Leonard Maltin synopsis of the film would be, boy's going to die in 6 months. Father decides to give him the greatest 6 months of his life. Yeah. That is the slug line of the movie.
So he takes him back to his chateau and he's indulging him. Yeah. He's letting him do whatever he wants. And Bourvil is sort of like, you're spoiling the kid. And he's even getting a little, the kid doesn't even really know, I think, initially that he's...
The kid doesn't know, but he starts figuring it out.
They're hiding it from him. And Bourvil is sort of like, you're going to make the kid spoiled, and you're doing this and that. And then finally William Holden, he hasn't told anybody.
And he tells
Bourvil.
He tells his best friend.
And Bourvil's reaction, it's actually moving me right now.
Oh.
Bourvil's reaction, which is... because this is a guy who's like you compared him to Danny Kaye.
Yeah. He's the French Danny Kaye.
Like he's a comedian. He's funny. He's always up and happy. He's the good friend. He's like the buddy. He's like the kind of the French resistance guy. Yeah. And his close-up reaction shot of himself, the shock on his face, this suddenly all the happiness drained out of him, and he just says, "Don't say that to me!" And then he backs up and he knocks over this chair and it's one of the most powerful moments that I've seen in recent memory. It really shook me. This Bourvil guy who I've really never known.
Yeah. I know of him. Yeah,
I mean, I
know him from this movie.
He freaking blew me away in this scene. And because his reaction was so real. It was so intense.
It was amazing acting. It was amazing.
Because the father's given him a tractor, I think. That's what it is. I want a tractor. And he's like, yes, no problem. He gets him a tractor. And the housemaid is
and also he says something about his dinner. He doesn't want to eat something, and so is his dad. And he's kind of talking back, I think. And I think that's what
the little kid talks back to his dad, and then Bourvil calls him on it. And then Bourvil finds out the truth. And Bourvil is, of course, like, I understand now. And he's part of the thing. But rather than dragging that out a long ways, the kid overheard.
Yeah.
He's been listening the entire time.
And now let me talk about the kid for a little bit.
Yeah.
Because the kid's a really good actor.
Yeah, the kid's played by...
As far as little children actors in these little movies go.
I have a defense for that, but the actor is Brooke Fuller, who played Pascal Segura.
Okay. During the whole first act, I would even say, I'm like, okay, I really like this movie. I wish I liked the little kid more. All right. He's not terrible. I've seen terrible child actors. He's not terrible. But I really don't like his little sissiness. All right.
He's like a little bit of a dandy.
Yeah. Here's one of the things about him I don't like, but I actually have to say he overcomes this. One of my least favorite child actors of all time is that little skinny dweeby dweeb that joined One Day at a Time, Glenn Scarpelli.
Okay. Yeah.
And he's also in They All Laughed. And he's the only thing I don't like in They All Laughed. I like everything in They All Laughed except for little Glenn Scarpelli. And this kid talks exactly like Glenn Scarpelli. He's better than Glenn Scarpelli, but he talks exactly like, I keep thinking about, it's Glenn Scarpelli, which is not helping him out.
You know, he has this kind of confidence thing going on in his performance.
Well, it happens in that scene. It starts in that scene.
Yeah.
All right, because the thing is, they're having their big scene, and like the scene is already big enough.
Yeah, Bourvil has already hit the ceiling with the scene. It's incredible.
Yeah, it's already big enough. And then all of a sudden, he goes, but Pascal's not stupid. He can't know. Pascal already knows. And they turn around and it's Pascal there. He's wearing a robe and a scarf with all the panache of Cary Grant in a movie from 1935.
Yeah.
He's stylish. He's like Terrence Young as a boy. A young English boy.
I mean, he practically has it's like a little Peter Bogdanovich. He practically has an ascot on.
He's got that little scarf.
He might as well have a little candy cigarette in a cigarette holder. It says, I know what's going on, and from now on, we can all stop pretending. He pulls that scene off. And once he pulls that scene off, he has his other annoying moments, but he proceeds to get better and better and better and better in the movie. And so by the end of the movie, he's actually really strong.
Can we talk about the wolves, please?
Oh, we haven't even brought up the wolves.
We haven't brought the wolves, but when you watch
the MVP, the most valuable player in this film.
This is the WTF of this movie because it's gone a lot of ways, and then all of a sudden,
you know, I don't like that kind of terminology, but I will let it stand
here
in result to the wolves because WTF is the only thing that actually describes it.
And that's a Terrence Young thing. It's like these two guys, like the kid basically goes to the zoo and he sees these wolves, and it's not the Paris Zoo, as they say. It's actually the
kid
Nice
has
Zoo.
a wacko obsession with wolves anyway.
Yeah.
All right?
Yeah.
Like the way your 2-year-old thinks about dinosaurs is how this 10-year-old smart kid thinks about wolves.
Yeah, and he's almost like, you know, get your hands out of the wolf's cage, and he's like, no, they weren't going to touch me. They were nice, and like he's got a simpatico with the wolves.
He does have a simpatico with the
nobody else can seem to understand. But then when he basically says, I would like the wolves.
You can have anything you want. You tell me what you want.
Anything.
You can have anything you want. If Pascal says, I want a hot air balloon, he could have bought a hot air balloon and there would be one on the front lawn.
He already went camping with him when he didn't want to go camping. So it will indulge him. But now he will do anything.
But Pascal gets it. He's like, oh, okay, I kind of got these guys under a barrel
I'm
here.
supposed to die soon, so I can get whatever I want.
Anything I want, and my dad can do anything I want. And if he's doing it with Bourvil, they can definitely do anything I want. Those two guys together, don't forget about it. I want a wolf. Get me a wolf. I mean, a real wolf. Get me a wolf.
Yeah. So the first thing they do is they go to an animal smuggler.
That scene is so fucking amazing.
They literally go to
out of nowhere.
Yeah, they go, I've got a guy who's got us a wolf. I found a guy who's got us a wolf. And so they go to like some seedy place in like Nice or something, some apartment, some second floor apartment. And they go up into the second floor apartment. It's like this dingy little Nice apartment. And inside of it, some, French guy who's like, yes, I have a wolf for you. It's right here. And he pulls out this little pup, this little wolf pup.
It's not even a wolf. It's a fox pup.
And Bourvil is like, that's not a wolf. It's a little thing. I need a wolf. I need an actual wolf, not this. Not this little thing. And he's like, well, what about this? And he's got like a giant boar.
He has a boar.
And they've got just this giant like forest pig inside of this apartment running around. Because when they first go in, they're like, what's that smell?
Was the pig named Gladys?
Yes, the pig's name is Gladys or Snowflake or something like that.
No, it was Gladys.
It was Gladys,
yeah. It was Gladys.
Oh, my Lord.
I love that pig. I wanted her to buy the pig.
Yeah,
the pig was fucking
craziness
amazing.
of the pig running around that room. So then they're like, okay, well, what are we going to do? We got to get a wolf. Okay, well, all right, because we're going to have to get the ones from the zoo. So they just hatched this plan because these guys are French resistance guys. They're used to doing crimes. And they're used to killing Nazis and things like that.
And they even say, they go, it's just like the resistance. It's like a mission in World War II. We got to plan it out. Yeah. And it'd be easier. We're not blowing up the zoo.
And all of a sudden, the movie becomes a heist film.
It becomes a heist film about stealing two wolves. And then that scene It's as harrowing as you could ever see.
Like, we're gonna chloroform the wolves. Oh, how are you gonna do that?
That was the most insane.
All the intense scenes in this movie are so more batshit out of control once they get going than you ever expect.
Because they go into this cage, and there's because there's two wolves in the cage. Well, there's actually many wolves in the cage, but there's two who will not separate themselves from each other.
Yeah, and that's a big point about the fact that the wolves
I guess we're gonna have to take both of them.
Yeah.
So they end up like chloroforming both of these wolves and smuggling them out in this absolutely harrowing thing. And Terence Young, by the way, up until now and continuing on, is using every big studio tool he's learned along the way as a craftsman.
He's blinding this movie with science.
Yeah, he really is. It's stunning. So they get the wolves and they bring them back and they put them in their basement, in their wine cellar.
In their little chicken coop basement.
Yeah, they put them down there.
And by the way, okay, I didn't realize how big wolves were.
Oh,
They're
yeah. They're huge. They're big.
They are fucking huge. That's what makes them wolves.
Well,
I did not realize I'm just not used to seeing humans chilling around wolves.
Children.
And that's exactly what happens in this, because I thought they were doing split screen or maybe glass. No, it turns out they're just letting these giant wolves approach the kid. He's petting them, and they're doing close-ups with them with the wolves. There's William Holden with a wolf.
And also, we haven't really mentioned Verna Lisi at all. And I think she does a really great job, especially in that scene when she goes down into the basement and they're like petting the wolves and feeding the wolves. Like,
and the little kid basically has a line. She stops showing up after a while, basically because, and she's kind of fine with it because she's just at home curling up in bed, smoking cigarettes and drinking coffee, or drinking spiked coffee.
She's living large.
She's living large. She's living large on.
She's living the life I want Verna Lisi to live.
Yeah, the tycoon has set her up at the Negresco in Nice. And he's like, you just stay here while we're dealing with the whole wolf thing. Because the little kid says, no, women and wolves don't mix. And what it really is, it's Bourville, his father, and the kid. And they're just like the men. They're all bonding in this way.
But it's really touching. Nobody's telling William Holden that he's crazy about this shit.
Yeah.
No one is telling him that he's nuts. No one's telling him to get a grip. No one's telling him to calm down. They all just kind of jump off on this thing with him. And there's this wonderful moment when they're Verna Lisi, Bourville, and William Holden are talking about how they're going to steal the wolves. And they go, okay, we've got to figure this out between the two of us. And then Verna Lisi goes, well, that's a man's problem right there. He doesn't know how to count. Meaning that there's three of them to figure it out.
That was one of the best lines I've heard in recent memory. That was such a brilliant moment.
Yeah.
And then she's there to help. She's the driver, basically.
But it always made my heart like little, all right. Every time I saw like all of them together, all of them knowing what's going on, all of them like celebrating together about this or that and the other. Oh, I can see by the smiles on your faces that everything went well.
And Terence Young also wrote this.
Yeah. So he did?
Yeah, it's written and directed by Terence Young. So
and there's a lot going on in this movie. So there's a local nobleman who raises horses, and the kid's really interested in him, and that becomes like the horses smell the wolves on the kid, and that becomes a thing where the horse runs away and goes mad because of the wolves, and
literally the horse has gone crazy. He's turned into what they call a jughead.
Yeah, a jughead horse.
Yeah, he's become a jughead horse. So it's almost like he's rabid.
They have to put it down.
They got to put it down. He's a fucking menace.
And he's crazy.
And he's running around like a crazy, like batshit fucking crazy around the neighborhood, and they can't get him.
Yeah, every now and then there will be a scene, and they're like, brum, 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 there goes the horse.
And there's that lunatic horse. All right.
Okay, so I looked up Vernay.
Mm-hmm.
Vernay was a concentration camp in the South. In the south of France, where 40,000 people, 50 nationalities, about 40,000 people, and mostly anti-fascist refugees as well. It's the concentration camp that they don't really talk about. I pulled something written by the Bristolian online, which basically said, during the post-war period, the glorious narrative of the resistance in the south of France triumphed over the sinister reality. The history of fascist collaboration was pushed into the shadows of national history, being replaced with silence and shame surrounding this collaboration. And they're talking about Vichy France and the collaboration, and the fact that right there in the South, was a massive, massive concentration camp from which they were sending people.
Right,
it was like
yeah.
a way station, basically. And so I think that in an esoteric kind of way, Terence Young is kind of talking about this with respect to, he's got resistance guys, he's got wolves, and the wolves attack his horse. I mean, there's some kind of statement Terence Young is making about the war, about what it does to us, about what our governments do to us. I mean,
I think you're right.
there's also the nuclear device, which has basically pulled a George C. Scott rage on William Holden.
No, the whole thing that's actually really, it's interesting, especially in a comparison to Rage, is the idea that William Holden doesn't have the luxury of giving in to Rage, because he would be a fool to spend his time raging during the only 6 months that his son has to live.
Yeah.
So he literally has to just bury it. I'll deal with that later.
Just be the best father you can.
It explodes every once in a while, but all I can do is just I can bury the injustice about everything that's happening, because I just have to be there for Pascal to give him the best time ever.
Which is really the message of the film. Just be the best father you can in the moment you have, because you don't know how much time you have. Let's just say that by the end of the film, I was gasping for air and choking. I was crying. I mean, you saw me. I fell apart. The movie actually completely destroyed me. And then it did something like, the one thing I will give away, and maybe I shouldn't, but I will, the final thing that's left with you.
We all know where it's going.
Well, we all know that ultimately Pascal is going to die.
Yes.
But the end with the wolves howling.
Oh, gosh.
Howling in front of the Christmas tree. They're howling and howling and howling. And that howling actually is so intense. It's like they're crying for the death of the boy. It really stabbed me in my heart. And then Terence Young cuts to black. There are no end credits. Over.
Yeah.
The lights come up in the theater because he knows that you're crying.
Yeah.
Terence Young knows that the entire theater is
there's
crying.
a little bit of black with just the wolves crying.
Yeah, where the wolves are crying, and everybody, if you're a human being, you're in tears or you're choking up.
Yeah.
And the lights suddenly come up in the theater, and we're all standing there with the lights up and tears on our faces. He does it strategically.
Yeah, no.
He does it because he knows what he's doing to you.
We're watching these kind of things, and sometimes they work, and sometimes they work better than others, but I think this is cinema. I think this is cinematic.
This is some of the most powerful cinema I've seen recently.
I think this is cinema, and I think part of cinema is taking an audience and manipulating them to have emotions that they can have in a safe way that would be too devastating to have in real life.
Yeah.
And they get to vicariously experience the highs and the lows of the movie characters. And if you do it with the right kind of velvet glove, that kind of crying, that kind of emotional outlet can actually be pleasurable. It can be fun. It can be cathartic.
Well,
it's
was
its
cathartic.
own thing.
That was what I told you afterwards. Was because I had just been with my dad. My dad is, had a stroke, and my dad is, he's not the same as he used to be. He's not the Roy Cameron.
He's not Roy Cameron.
He's unable to adventure the way he used to.
Yeah.
In his mind, he still can.
Yeah.
In his mind, he's still hopping on a scooter, like on a Vespa, and buzzing around. And I'm like, Dad. And he's like, and I'm trying to take care of him this way. And because Louisinho, who is basically Bourville, is visiting us, I've got Bourville there, and it's me, and I'm literally in bed with my dad. I'm sleeping with my dad because Louisinho's in the other room.
Yeah.
And so I'm sleeping with my dad. And when the father and son were sleeping together, I was just breaking apart. I love this movie. Mm-hmm. And this movie hit me exactly in the right moment. It reminded me how important movies are. That when they hit you in the right moment, that they cathartically open a door that you've closed. And outpours, a release of emotion. And this movie did that for me, and I'm really grateful for it. I thanked you, I think, afterwards.
I had a wonderful time watching it with you, and I felt special to be in the room with you while you had that. And
vice versa. I felt special to be in the room with you because, on one hand, we're both fathers.
Yeah.
And we're both fathers of sons and daughters.
Mm-hmm.
And, anybody who's a parent, I think can understand that this becomes, when you have a child, this becomes one of your things.
I haven't seen my son in 3 weeks, and I've missed him terribly. All right, I miss him terribly.
Yeah, but that will never go away.
But watching this movie, it was like, okay, I got to go back Monday.
Yeah,
I got to get fucking home. I miss him too much. Okay, guys. Since we've decided to talk about the whole damn fucking movie, all right, we have talked around one of the most amazing scenes in the annals of video archive scenes.
One of the
am I wrong?
no.
Is that hyperbole?
No, it's one of the toughest scenes. It's one of the hardest to shoot scenes. As I was watching it, I turned to you and I was like, "How do you shoot this?" And you were like, "I don't know." And it's an incredible moment.
And it's exciting. It's exhilarating. It's everything.
Yeah, it really tugs at you when you love animals and if you love horses. You're conflicted,
but also viscera and just everything.
I mean, basically, the horse that belongs to Vernet, the aristocrat guy played by
the crazy jughead horse.
Yeah, played by Frederick von Ladenburg. His horse, which has been wild, is out there. And it's actually gotten into a situation where it's trapped the kid under his tractor.
Yeah, it's trying
to
trample the kid because he smells like the wolves. Basically, the kid is now one of the wolves.
The kid is basically a wolf. Yeah.
And the wolves have taken him in as like a cub.
Yeah.
And have been guarding him and protecting them and have taken dominion over him.
Yeah, he spends half his day with the wolves, so he just smells like a fucking wolf. And he's become a wolf.
Yeah, and so the horse is like, I got to kill this little wolf, wolf cub. And it's trying to kill him, and he's rolling around under the tractor.
And it's really muscular filmmaking. This horse is like, there's been a couple movies that show how truly powerful a horse can be, especially if it goes ape shit, about like the incredible strength that it has and how terrifying these gigantic animals can be when they go nuts. And it's getting that across.
Oh, completely.
And so
it gets it across, as well as Valerian Bororachek's The Beast in Lebet. That training of the horse in the beginning, which is like, oh my God.
Well, and there's the William Whitney movie called Stranger at My Door. There's like a horse breaking scene that's amazing. Anyway, so William Holden comes running out there. Oh my God. He's
running across the field, trying to get to the horse son. Away. And he grabs a pitchfork.
Yeah,
he's going to have to stab the horse with a pitchfork. I was like, holy shit.
Well, because also the thing also is like, even though his son is dying, he's still going to fight for his son.
He's still going to fight for his son's
live
life
as long as he can.
Hell yeah, he'll put himself in.
He would rather be trampled than allow his son to be trampled.
And so he's screaming at the horse to get his attention. He's got this pitchfork, and then all of a sudden, Burrell comes running out to help, and Burrell was in the barn, so he opened up the pen, and then all of a sudden you don't see it set up for it. Burrell's running, and then all of a sudden you see the wolves
come running, and they overtake him. They run past him.
He let the wolves out, and now the wolves are coming to the rescue. And one of the most exciting animal fights I've ever seen in a movie plays between the wolves and this jughead horse. And wow!
It's crazy. It was breathtaking.
It blew me through the back of the fucking room.
Yeah, it was like, it was truly masterful filmmaking and emotional filmmaking.
And just like, and when the wolves are going to save him. The wolves are saving their cub. The wolves are serving.
I've never ever in my life.
Adam and Eve. The wolves are called Adam and Eve.
Yeah.
I never imagined that I would be rooting for the wolves to kill a horse in a movie. I never imagined that.
And just that first shot when you just see the wolves, like, oh my God, they're going to get into this.
Yeah,
that's also the other thing.
They're coming to the rescue.
Yeah.
And it's also the thing is because at the very beginning, when the plane explodes, you have your first, like, I'm woken up from the movie. And then you kind of settle into what the movie is. And you have that, like, weird, like, they've captured these wolves and it's crazy. But then when you have this wolf fight, you wake back up again.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's rare that a movie will have two of those.
Yeah.
That it keeps waking you up.
Yeah, it pops you awake. And I also love how the airplanes are constantly flying overhead as a reminder. Like, every now and then they're always like, oh my God. And he,
that's why
he as a G-man can't, like, they're trying to keep it all quiet and he's not allowed to talk about it.
Yeah.
And even though his son is going to be killed by.
That's the part where William Holden is like trying to get to George C. Scott every time he hears the airplane.
I know, because I asked Quentin when we paused real quick for something. I asked him, Quentin, like, do you think that George C. Scott in Rage, if he had the 6 months with his son, would have acted differently? Or do you think he would have acted more like William Holden? Or do you think he would have been like more like George C. Scott in Rage?
No, he would have spent his time with his son.
Yeah.
But it's also the situation of, the government plotted against him with their lies.
Yeah.
So he's also responding to that.
Yeah.
As opposed to, okay, look, here's the deal.
Yeah.
Well, Gala, it turns out that since we just did the Christmas tree and William Holden is the star of that, I was going through my stuff here at the house and I found a shoebox of old cassette tapes of stuff that I recorded a long time ago. And let me explain what I'm talking about. So if you follow the story of me, the Quentin Tarantino story, if you follow the trajectory, there was the time that I quit school and I worked at a community theater center for a while. That's where I kind of first got involved in plays and stuff. Then I kind of went to the James Best Theater Center, studied with James Best, who played the Sheriff Roscoe Coltrane on The Dukes of Hazzard. Then the normal trajectory of this story is I started working at archives. But there's a middle section. When I was studying at the James Best Theater Center, before I started working with archives, I had gotten a job at a little rockabilly radio station out of Santa Monica called K-Billy, K-B-I-L-L-Y. And first I just got a job as I was just kind of the boy there. There was a lot of girls working at the place. Put the Sparkletts water bottle in the thing and cleaned out the back room and did all the bullshit to be done there. Anyway, I was really into rockabilly music at the time, and that was when I started wearing my hair and like in the rockabilly
and like the leather jacket.
I didn't wear a leather jacket. I wore like a houndstooth coat kind of thing. But I started going to the barber that did the Blaster's hair. Yeah, so I was actually getting my hair done in this rockabilly style. And so they all knew I was into movies. And so they had, during their newscast, they had a little movie segment that they would do for like when there was press junkets around. And so I became their K-Billy rockabilly reporter that came down and went to the different press junkets and recorded, interviewed the actors and recorded them and played them on the air.
I remember when you were doing this. Was right before you started working at archives.
Right before. And so I didn't go by my name, Quentin Tarantino. I went by my character name at the time, which was my rockabilly name, which was Clarence Poole.
How did you come up with that name?
I don't know. I just came up with it, and that later when I did the movie I never finished, My Best Friend's Birthday, that was my character.
Your character's name
was Clarence Poole, but that was my persona. And so anyway, I came across a bunch of these tapes, and so I thought whenever we do a movie that deals with some of the people that are on some of these tapes, let's play them. All right, for the listeners. And well, it just so happens that in 1978. I went to the Beverly Hills Hilton, and they were doing the press junket for Damien, Omen 2. Wow.
That was like one of Scott's favorite movies.
Yeah, and it starred William Holden. And so I sat down and was able to interview William Holden. So let's, you want to hear the tape?
Yes.
Wow, that's great. You've got the tape?
I've got it right here.
Oh, my God.
Okay, I'm going to hit play, record as of now.
This is Clarence Poole, your rockabilly reporter for K-Billy Radio here at the Beverly Hills Hilton for the press junket for Damien, Omen 2. The chilling prospect of a biblical prediction coming true in our time was explored in the recent Gregory Peck film, The Omen. It told of the birth and boyhood of the prophesied Antichrist who would lead the forces of Satan in one last great battle. Now, in Damien Omen 2, the boy comes into adolescence, and his true nature emerges with monumental impact. Starring in this 20th Century Fox film is Lee Grant, and our guest, William Holden, who plays a powerful international industrialist. Well, Mr. Holden, while I sit here looking at you, I can't help but think of Pike and the Wild Bunch. Now, I bumped into Sam Peckinpah regular L.Q. Jones, who's also in the Wild Bunch, at a screening, and he said one of the things that made you so strong in that movie was that you had done Westerns, but you didn't really do good Westerns. So the Wild Bunch had a real impact with you in it. And while I know what he means, I mean, Alvarez Kelly doesn't compare to the Wild Bunch, an early film you did, Texas, for George Marshall, alongside fellow contract player Glenn Ford, is a delightful Western of that period. I'm also a big fan of Rachel and the Stranger, with Robert Mitchum and Loretta Young, and that's sort of a Western. Nevertheless, compared with the other big male actors of the 50s, you didn't do many. How do you feel about Westerns?
In every society, or every kind of national life, they have their heroes that are the folklore, the legends of people. We have the Westerns. the Western stars and the period of winning of the West. In Japan, you have the samurai and the deeds of the great warriors. In England, you have the knights in armor. And in the Arabic countries, you have the Bedouin horsemen that used to ride the plains. And every society has that. Because we make so many films about our folk legends and the legends around the West, they're accepted. That's why Hollywood is still the capital, because we make the films and then they're seen all over the world. But they are identifiable almost with their own folk legends and the heroes of those folk legends.
Well said, Mr. Holden, well said. Now, this film, Damien Omen 2, is rated R for some really grisly scenes that wouldn't have been allowed in some of your earlier pictures. What's the biggest change between working under the Hays Code that Hollywood used to exist under and what it's like working under the MPAA rating system of today?
I haven't really given it much thought. I certainly am for freedom of speech and expression, and I feel that if we can have that politically, which is one of the freedoms guaranteed us under the Constitution, that it is applicable to other things, whether it's art form or business. You see, the people who scream the most about pornography or obscenity are the people who endorse it in some way. Now, it doesn't bother my life because it has nothing to do with my life. And I just don't care to see it. So I don't go and see it. Now, I know if I see a theater that, or in the daily papers, it says X-rated, and I just don't go. I know that if there's a concert and they're going to play Mozart or Prokofiev or whatever it is, the kind of music it is, fine, I know. I would like to see it, and I would like to spend the evening in the concert hall. But if they say it's going to be a rock festival, again, that is not my bag, so I just don't go. And the people that are screaming the most about obscenity and pornography, if they would just ignore it, it'll go away. It has its place. It's a percentage of entertainment for a certain number of people, I should imagine. But let them express themselves. If you don't like it, don't go. It's like years ago there was an actor, I don't mind saying, Errol Flynn. And every time Errol Flynn went into a nightclub, he got into a fight. And one day I ran into him, and he was a charming guy and marvelous man to his fellow workers and to the people that he knew. And I ran into him out at Warner Brothers, and this must have been 30 years ago. And I said, Errol, I found out how you can stay out of a fight in a nightclub. And he said, well, for God's sakes, Bill, tell me. And I said, don't go.
Some recollections and comments from William Holden, who stars with Lee Grant in the chilling new sequel to The Omen called Damien Omen 2. It's presented by 20th Century Fox. Remember, the first time was only a warning. This is Clarence Poole, your rockabilly reporter for K-Billy Radio, signing off.
Oh my God, that is like memories flooding back to me, because I haven't heard any of that since literally when you started working at
84.
Yeah. That was when you were like going and meeting people on books and stuff and doing all that. You were like a journalist, a cinema journalist back then.
And you said you have more of these?
Yes, I do. I have a whole shoebox full of my cassette tapes. So whenever we do whenever we have actors that correspond with the people I interviewed, we'll play them. Now, I have a few people that I actually recorded for some actors that we've already dealt with movies this season. So I think what we'll do is on the after shows, we'll play some of those. We'll catch ourselves up.
Look, I can't wait to get my hands on these tapes and play them and digitize them for everyone to hear.
I can't believe you found these. I mean, these have been sitting in this box since then. I know you keep everything.
It helps when you don't, like, the reason you clutter up your life for 40 years of it is for on the day that you need to find something, and you do.
What a Christmas gift.
Thursday, visit the North Pole, where all year long folks have been getting ready for Christmas. This holiday season, Fred Astaire tells us how Santa got his start. A Christmas classic, Santa Claus is Coming to Town.
Watch Thursday at 8, 7 Central and Mountain on ABC.
Okay, and we're back, and we're all back. All three of us are here.
Hi.
And we're here to talk about our second and final film on this Christmas episode. We watched the Laserdisc from the Video Archives collection of the old Christmas special, Santa Claus is Coming to Town, which, if you remember, is the one where Fred Astaire hosted as the little mailman.
The Rankin Bass production.
The great Rankin Bass production with Fred Astaire and Mickey Rooney and Keenan Wynn.
And the children's choir.
And the children's choir.
Yeah.
Here's the back of the Laserdisc. All right. It's really quick. The holiday favorite filled with good cheer, Santa Claus is Coming to Town, tells how Kris Kringle got his start as the world's favorite gift giver by struggling to bring toys and happiness to children of Somber Town. Approximate running time, 51 minutes. Color. Produced
by Jules Bass and Arthur Rankin Jr., Jules Bass, who
you just mentioned, he was one of your neighbors in the south of France.
He was one of my pals. I had dinner numerous times at his place, and he was a super stylish guy, and he was astonished because I was like a big fan of Friesmeister.
Yeah.
I'm Mr. Friesmeister. I'm Mr. Frost. So I would like, it was literally like being the child of a filmmaker in a way, like somebody who literally created you from the work that they did. Mm-hmm. And then, being able to sit with them, it's almost like being with a parent.
No, it would be amazing to know him, because it's like, it would be like knowing Joseph Hanna or William Barbera. Yeah. No, if you're Maya Rogers' age and you have a memory of being a little boy in either or really, really young in the late 60s or through the 70s, then you just you grew up with Rankin and Bass specials, but especially their Christmas specials.
Yeah.
And it was very touching watching it. It's just really charming. It's really charming. It's got a lovely story. The songs in it are really good. The puppetoon animation is great. It's absolutely terrifically good enough on its own to be a little charmer. Yeah. But I could not help but watch it through the veil of nostalgia.
Yeah.
All right. As I watched it, because in America, because I know a lot of people listen to the show that aren't in America, but in America at that time, when you're a little kid, there was just certain things you had that you counted on, that you look forward to.
Indeed.
And it was almost like before you really understood this and that and the other, it was certain events that you look forward to in the course of a year. And that was how you even as a young kid could process a year. All right. So if you're Christian and you believe in Christmas, all right, then you have Christmas every year.
Yeah.
That's going to happen. All right. At a certain point, you'll go to school. At a certain point, you'll get out.
You'll have summer vacation.
You'll get out for summer vacation. All right. At a certain point in the year, they're going to show The Wizard of Oz on television, and you will watch it.
Yeah.
And that will happen every year.
And It's a Wonderful Life as well.
Yeah, well, that was much later. That happened later. That happened later. I'm talking about like
when we were kids.
From 3 or 4.
Yeah. 3 or 4.
But the other thing, along with all that stuff, was the Christmas specials.
Yeah.
That came on network television during the December months, that you just and they played the same ones every year, and you waited for them every year, and you watched them every year.
Like the Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
There was Rudolph it was probably the most popular.
Yeah, that's the one I have on Laserdisc.
Yeah,
at home.
Yeah, so there was Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. There was Santa Claus is Coming to Town. There's Frosty the Snowman.
Yeah.
There was A Night Before Christmas, but I never liked that one.
Yeah.
There's the Peanuts, the Christmas Peanuts special.
For sure.
I mean, my generation, we have like the Grinch Who Stole Christmas.
Oh, well, then we had the Grinch. No, we had the Grinch Who Stole Christmas too.
We have like 5 iterations of it.
No, I had the Boris Karloff one.
Yeah, we had the
good one. I had the good one. I had another one on my lips, and
these would play. And if it was like my house, we have the Christmas tree on, and the gifts are in front of the tree, and the lights are on, and there's just this atmosphere in the house. and you're watching the Christmas special.
Well,
It's like this thing.
Also, I think it's also one of those things where this might be this Rankin Bass, these specials might be some of the first media you ever really watched. All right. You might be watching things randomly because they just were on TV, like cartoons or something. But I remember in the case, and I'm sure I'm no different from any other kid, like when this or Frosty the Snowman or
The Great Pumpkin on Halloween.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Dad, you actually have like a whole Great Pumpkin thing that used to do in my family, which I found out later was not something that other families did, where Dad had and my mom had this idea of the Great Pumpkin, which you would leave your candy to the night of Halloween.
So
after
you'd go trick-or-treating, you get all your candy.
And you'd leave your candy out, and then that night, the next night, morning, you wake up and there'd be a gift there in place of your candy.
Oh, wow.
And so we had the Great Pumpkin, and I got an orange Razor scooter.
Yeah.
It was like the coolest gift ever. And so we were like super excited about the Great Pumpkin. And then I realized like it's not a thing that other families do.
Yeah, it was just something we made up because they wouldn't eat so much candy. Take like a little bit of candy, and the rest of your booty will go toward in exchange for your present.
But it's funny because my parents would just have it in the cupboard. They were just eating it throughout the year.
Yeah, we would just keep it around the house.
But, one of the things is I'm sure it's like a thing when I was like 3 or 4. It's like, hey, Quentin, there's going to be Santa Claus is coming to town is on TV, or Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer is on what's that? Well, let's watch it. And so now we all sit on the couch and watch it together. And that was the thing. Hey, this is something for Quentin.
Yeah.
And they made a big deal about it. And so all of a sudden, I thought it was a big deal. And then next year when it came around, I guess this is a thing.
Yeah.
And it is really nostalgic, especially since you do watch these with family. Like, I have a really distinct memory of watching this with my aunt, who's since passed away. Mm-hmm. And I don't have a lot of memories with her, but I have a memory of watching these Rankin Bass
have this
on her lap at Christmas time at my other aunt's house, like with the cookies and the tree and the gifts. And it's just very nostalgic. There's no other way besides like, you feel Christmas creeping in when you watch something like this.
But also to talk about how good the piece is unto itself is all that is good enough. It wouldn't need to be any better than that. Okay, then just try not to annoy me. Yeah. All right, and don't ruin anything, and we're all good. But this was even more charming than that.
Oh, it's so good.
It was so good. The songs worked. The animation was fantastic, and they create out of whole cloth this mythology for Kris Kringle. That's really charming. It's about as legit as anything else I've ever heard.
It's as real as Santa Claus, who was invented by the Coca-Cola Corporation.
Yeah, absolutely. But the other thing that was really funny is no, that's true. From the 30s.
I didn't know that.
No, our image of Santa Claus did not start until the 30s, and it was through Coca-Cola advertisements.
Gotta love like consumerism and like Coca-Cola. That's why he's red and white, I guess.
Yeah. But the thing is, the Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer one, I could tell you more detailed about. I always forget this one until I start watching it again. But we forgot. I think all of us forgot until we started watching it and started remembering. It's like, oh, they're gonna come up with a reason for every tradition involved revolved around Christmas, and him giving toys is all going to get worked into how that all happened.
Well, I love that the conceit is that it's being told by the postman.
Yeah.
Whose job it is to deliver the letters from kids up to Santa Claus.
Who all have questions.
Yeah, who all have questions. And it's played by Fred Astaire. Yeah. And he gets these letters. And
Santa, how come you have a red suit?
Why do you have whiskers?
Yeah. Santa, how come you live on the North Pole?
Why do you go down the chimney, Santa?
Yeah.
And they answer those questions.
Yeah.
Like every single question you have about Santa.
No, it's a great conceit.
Rankin Bass have figured out how to answer those questions.
And then at a certain point, we're like, we're waiting for the next one. Okay, is there anyone that they haven't brought up? I think they got a bit. Oh no, there's this one.
They even do the lore of Mrs. Claus.
Yeah.
Where did she come from?
Where did she come from? And it's like, and then the lore of like, why does he go out once a year on the 24th?
How come he's different than the elves? He's got all these elves around him. Is he an elf? And like, well, in this they completely explain that.
Oddly enough, one of the things that I even remember from when I was a kid was hearing Mickey Rooney doing the voice of the young Kris Kringle. Well, I knew who Mickey Rooney was back then, and I never really liked Mickey Rooney doing the voice because I could always tell he was like older Mickey Rooney, even though it's like a young guy. And so I forgot that I felt that way when I was younger, and I'm watching it now, and I'm feeling that way, and then I'm remembering, Oh, wait a minute. I felt that way when I was 4. That Mickey Rooney is sounding a little too old when he's like the young guy. But here's the thing that I feel right now watching it that's a total crack up to me. Seeing the character of Kris Kringle, young with a big fresh face, and he's not fat. He's just big fresh face and big red hair. And he's in the Santa Claus outfit, but not like the fat Santa Claus outfit, just like his outfit. And he looks just like the killer guy, Billy, in Silent Night, Deadly Night.
Oh, my God.
When he's just walking around the store with the axe and he's just like killing everybody. And by the way, I love that guy. I think that's one of the great unsung performances, David Hess level, all right, in slasher film history is the guy who plays Billy. I'm a big fan of Silent Night, Deadly Night. One of the reasons I'm a fan of it. Have you ever seen it?
I haven't seen it, actually.
Here's the thing. It shows this kid's horrible childhood that leads him to be this batshit crazy killer. They do such a good job showing what a fucking horrible childhood he had that you're on his side the entire fucking movie. When he becomes a killer, you're rooting for him.
Do it
the whole way. It's like this kid never had a fucking chance, and now you're just happy he's getting some.
I have to see Silent Night, Deadly Night. I've always wanted to see it. Okay. It's something I've wanted to see for a long time.
And what's amazing about it?
But now I have to, because
what's amazing about it has one of the great monologues, all right, in slasher film history is this old guy gives a monologue about being naughty. There's not a lot of great monologues in slasher films, but that's one of them. But the other thing that's really amazing about it is, he goes in some department store and is killing everybody in the toy aisle. So
we should have made that our third movie for Christmas.
Yeah. In this slasher extravaganza going on, blood and murder, and Linnea Quigley gets killed. All right, all this fucking blood and death and axes and with all this Santa Claus iconography. What's constantly in every shot is like Mickey Mouse and Kermit the Frog and all these corporate,
all the favorites.
All these corporate like characters are all over the place in every shot, every fucking shot. Wow. Every fucking shot.
Which you couldn't get away with today. Yeah. Like the lawyers would just shut you down.
I mean, they're everywhere you look.
Oh, that's
constantly.
Fantastic.
You never get a break from it. Makes it even more subversive.
Sounds great.
Did you have like a moment like where you felt like your heart was touched the most in this when you were watching? Because there were like maybe two.
I did. I had 2 moments.
I think as far as the piece itself was him and Mrs. Claus getting together and getting married, and they're like this kind of showed their little love together.
I loved her.
Her
musical
video.
Where it's like with different backgrounds, and it's kind of like a whole musical sequence. But
I loved when he gave her the gift, the porcelain doll, and she's like, "I always wanted one of these, but my parents never gave me one." And you see her kind of melt, and then also,
I love how they get every gift.
Every gift, and then the Mr. Warlock. I love when Mr. Warlock gets the train and he melts, and he like becomes just like.
Well, actually, Mr. Warlock was my favorite character. All right, Keenan Wynn was fantastic.
Yeah, and when he actually melts and becomes
Winter.
Yeah, just call me Winter.
Just call me Winter.
Winter, if you please.
I also love Meister Burger.
I love
who
Paul
is like
Frees
a
as
classic character.
Paul Frees does a great Meister Burger, and doesn't change his voice from Boris Badenov one iota.
Yeah, when we were watching it,
I can't wait for Natasha to show up.
Yeah, Quentin was giving us all like the lore of like exactly who he's voiced, like in all the Mario Bava movies.
Yeah.
I think the Penguin was one of the the Penguin was one of the moments because. He's like a mascot. He's like a friend, and he's kind of lost because I
like the way where Topper would run fast, and they have a little like animation of like him moving through the air.
Well, and I love it because he's more lost than anyone could be because he's on the North Pole and he's from the South Pole.
He's trying to get to the South Pole.
He's as far away from home as anyone can be.
Mm-hmm.
And
Where did Topper go in the end?
he's just with Santa.
Yeah, he just lives with them.
That's the funny part about it, though, is it's like the one part of like the Santa lore, if you weren't like in Rankin Bass, that I'd be like, why is there a penguin there? Besides him being lost.
The only one that ends badly who doesn't like find resolution is Burgermeister Meisterburger, who just dies.
Oh, no. And that was it. Okay.
And it's forgotten.
Yeah. He eventually passes away.
Yeah. As all these guys do. He fucking dies and everyone forgets
If you just wait around long enough.
And everyone wonders why they ever listened to him in the first place.
Wait around long enough, the German oppressor will die.
Why did he says like, I hate toys and toys hate me, but then at that one point he kind of likes the yo-yo.
Oh yeah, once he gets a yo.
Why do toys hate him?
Oh no, because he was walking down the stairs and he stepped on a toy duck, all right?
Yeah.
And he tripped and he goes, what happened there? Well, you stepped on a toy. A toy?
Yeah.
Bad toys.
Bad toys. It's like most government, it's an extreme reaction.
It's an extreme. It was an overcorrection.
An overcorrection. And although he loves toys in his heart, he's just, he had to institute
He loves
this
a
policy.
yo-yo. He loves his yo-yo.
Around the city, there's toys laying around everywhere, and
Paul
people
Frees is
can
really
get injured.
great. Paul Frees is really, really great at doing the voice of Burgermeister Meisterburger. Yes, it's a great day today. Look at everything's going fantastic. The children are playing with toys. It's all wonderful. The children are playing with toys.
Just heartwarming from beginning to end.
Yeah.
So the thing is,
and great songs too.
The one that I found it always very heartwarming, where every time Kris Kringle is confronted with a villain or a monster, he just offers them a toy, and that just like changes them.
Just be giving.
That's what Jesus would do.
The part that just really got to me was kind of the sweetness of the love story when they actually, shows
when
their
she
courtship.
gives him a kiss on like the cheek, and then he kind of blushes and.
But you were tearing up through most of it, but I didn't actually start crying till at the end. I mean, it was that kind of when Fred Astaire started singing the song at the end, and I realized the whole thing was over. That's when the tear came.
Yeah, no, to be honest, I think I was crying from beginning to end. I was very well after our previous conversation. I was very emotional, and then watching this, it's just like very comforting to sit down, and I feel like it is a Christmas tradition, no matter what your age is, or it should be a Christmas tradition, no matter what your age is, to watch these Rankin Bass.
It's for children of all ages, and certainly Tim Burton was influenced by it. Like, we wouldn't have Nightmare Before Christmas without Rankin Bass.
Oh, absolutely.
This is something Steve-O, Archives guy, he championed and loved. He was a Rankin Bass guy.
Okay, well, as lovingly as we're talking about it, Steve-O would be
militant.
Be the uber knowledgeable one about this. But I didn't particularly love this one compared to the other ones. When I was a kid, I liked it a lot. But this was Steve-O's favorite. Yeah. This was like Steve-O's. So you all have your favorite when you were growing up. I think Rudolph was my favorite. This was Steve-O's favorite.
This one was for you, Steve-O. Merry Christmas.
This was definitely for you, Steve-O. And I think that wraps up our Christmas episode. So everybody, Christmas, Hanukkah, I hope you're having a good time. Happy holidays. This is the Video Archives Gang. I'm Quentin.
And I'm Roger.
And I'm Gala.
Happy holidays, everybody. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to all, and to all a good night.
The Video Archives podcast is hosted by Quentin Tarantino and Roger Avary and produced by Josh Richmond and Gala Avary. Find out more about the show and get Video Archives merch at videoarchivespodcast.com. You can also find us on Twitter at Video Archives and on Instagram at Video Archives Pod.